What I'm about to share with you is something most people don't want you to hear, especially some women, because once you understand this truth about who you are, what you're worth, and how the game is really played, everything changes. This video isn't just advice, it's a wake-up call. And if you've made it here, congratulations, because you weren't supposed to. You've been told that if you're nice enough, patient enough, generous enough, she'll love you, that if you just keep proving yourself, if you keep showing her how much she means to you, eventually you'll be enough for her. But let's cut through the noise for a second. Let's get brutally honest. The truth is, women don't fall in love with men for what they do. They fall in love with who a man is. And that's something most men were never taught. You see, from a young age, society teaches you to be a provider, a pleaser, a protector. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what gets lost along the way is your sense of identity, your backbone, your non-negotiables, and that's the part women are silently watching for. We don't say it outright. It's not something women announce, but we test, we observe, we push. Why? Because we're wired to look for strength, not just physical strength, but emotional, mental, spiritual fortitude. We need to know, can this man lead himself? Can he stand alone? Can he remain grounded even when things aren't going his way? That's the part you were never meant to figure out. You weren't supposed to realize that the moment you start bending over backwards for her approval, you start to lose the very thing that attracted her in the first place, your frame, your center, your inner compass. Women are drawn to power, not control, confidence, not cockiness, purpose, not passive devotion, and that power doesn't come from how much attention you give her. It comes from how much discipline you have over your own life. But here's where it gets deeper. Most men believe that being chosen by a woman validates their worth, that if she loves me, then I must be doing something right, and that's the trap. That's where so many fall apart, because once you give someone else the authority to define your value, you become a slave to their opinion. You lose yourself trying to win someone else. Listen, real women, the ones who are grounded, evolved, and secure, they don't want a man who needs their validation to feel like a man. They want a man who already knows who he is, a man who's so locked into his vision that her presence is a bonus, not a lifeline. They want a man who doesn't flinch under pressure, a man who won't beg for love, but one who respects himself enough to walk away from anything that costs him his peace. That's not toxic, that's truth. You've been lied to about what women really respond to. You've been told that vulnerability means oversharing, that leadership is dominance, that masculinity is something you need to suppress. None of that is real. Vulnerability is knowing your truth and not being ashamed of it. Leadership is being calm in chaos. Masculinity is rooted in presence, purpose, and integrity, not in performance. But see, once you wake up to this, once you start walking with your chest out, not out of arrogance, but certainty, everything shifts. You stop overgiving. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't care. You stop waiting for someone to get it. And women can feel that. They feel the difference between a man who's trying to impress them and a man who's already impressed with his own life. Now, does that mean you never show love, never care, never give? No. But it means you don't lead with those things in hopes of being loved in return. You lead with your standards. You lead with your vision. You lead with your values. Love flows best when it's not forced. Let me tell you something most women won't say out loud. The men who command the most respect are not the ones who try to be everything to a woman. It's the ones who are already everything to themselves. It's the men who don't chase, who don't beg, who don't lose sleep over silence. The men who trust that the right woman will never make them question their worth. The men who know that if she walks away, she just made space for something greater. Those are the men women remember. And the truth is, many women don't want you to find this out. Not because they're evil, not because they're manipulative, but because once you stop needing them to validate you, you become untouchable. You become free. And freedom is powerful. It terrifies those who are used to controlling you with guilt, with withdrawal, with games. But once you learn to sit with your own silence, once you find peace in being unseen, you rise. And when you rise not just in status, but in self-awareness, everything changes. Your energy speaks before you do. You don't have to say much. You don't need to convince. You simply are, and that is what they didn't want you to know, of course. Here is the 800-word expanded version of *** key point 2 ***, written in the same seamless, confident tone, as if being delivered on stage by a powerful female speaker. It naturally follows the previous message and aligns with the overall theme. If you really want to understand why so many men are feeling lost today, confused, and constantly second-guessing themselves, look no further than the way masculinity is being treated. It's almost as if the world wants you to apologize for being a man. You're told to tone it down, be more sensitive, more agreeable, more soft-spoken. But let me ask you something. How is that working out for you? Because from where I stand, I see men who are disconnected from their strength. I see men who have been made to believe that the very qualities that once made them reliable, dependable, and deeply attractive are now flaws. And it's not just the media, it's not just the culture. It's the quiet pressure, the expectation to constantly shrink yourself to be accepted. Let's make one thing clear. Masculinity is **, not * the enemy. Masculinity, in its healthy form, is one of the most stabilizing forces in the world. When a man is grounded in who he is, when he carries himself with integrity, discipline, direction, he becomes a pillar, a protector, a man with presence, not someone who's aggressive or domineering, but someone who brings calm to chaos. That energy, it's rare, it's magnetic, and deep down, even when it's unpopular to say it, **, we respect it. **, but here's the catch. That kind of masculine power can't be faked. You can't pretend to be grounded when your life is built around pleasing others. You can't act confident when you're constantly chasing attention, scrolling for validation, waiting for someone else to affirm your worth. Masculine strength has to be built, and it's built in silence, in the gym when no one's watching, in your work ethic when no one's clapping, in your boundaries when no one's cheering you on. That's where it starts. You're not supposed to fit in. You're supposed to lead. But you can't lead when you're being led by your need to be liked. You can't lead when you're disconnected from your mission. And you definitely can't lead when your emotions run your decisions. Now, don't get me wrong. Emotions aren't weakness. But when a man doesn't master his emotions, when he lets frustration, anger, or desperation control his behavior, he becomes unstable, and the world doesn't follow unstable men. Women don't trust unstable men. People don't respect unstable men. You don't have to be cold, you don't have to be heartless, but you do need to be composed, you do need to be clear, you do need to be focused, and that's it. Something no one can give you, not your friends, not your family, not a partner. That's something you claim through discipline. That's something you choose every single day when you decide not to chase distractions, not to waste time, not to lower your standards. Because believe me, every time you compromise your standards to be more palatable, more safe, more harmless, you lose a piece of yourself. The world is full of men who have given their power away in exchange for acceptance. They don't speak up when something feels wrong. They go along with things just to avoid being judged. They say yes when they mean no. And then they wonder why no one respects them, why women lose interest, why they feel hollow, why they're constantly drained. It's because you were never meant to follow, you were meant to become, to evolve, to forge yourself through resistance, through struggle, through solitude if necessary. The pressure you feel to be passive, to shrink your fire, to be safe and non-threatening. That pressure doesn't come to help you. It comes to weaken you. It comes to make you forget who you are. You're not a threat when you walk in your power with discipline. You're a threat when you have no control over it. So if you want to be respected, if you want to be taken seriously, not just in relationships but in life, you need to stop outsourcing your confidence. You need to stop apologizing for being masculine, for being ambitious, for wanting to protect, lead, and build. There's nothing wrong with being a man who knows what he wants and isn't afraid to go after it. There's nothing wrong with being firm in your boundaries. There's nothing wrong with commanding presence when you walk into a room. If anything, the world needs more of that, not less. And yes, some people won't like it. Some people will call it intimidating, too much, toxic. But here's the truth. People will always criticize what they don't understand and what they can't control. And when you stop playing by their rules, when you decide to stand tall in your strength, you will lose a few people, that's part of it. But what you gain, peace, clarity, respect, self-trust, and that's worth everything, because the man who reclaims his masculinity reclaims his life. Absolutely. Here's the 800 word expansion of *** key point 3 ***, continuing naturally in the same confident, motivational tone, just like a powerful speaker addressing a room full of men needing truth and clarity. Let me ask you something simple but honest. When was the last time you told yourself, I'm enough even if no one claps for me today? Think about that, because too many men today are walking around like shells of who they could be, not because they're weak, not at all, but because they've traded in their self-respect for external approval. They've built their entire identity around being liked, being accepted, being chosen. But the man who needs to be chosen has already lost his power. See, there's a big difference between love and approval. Approval is temporary. It's based on performance. You do this, I give you that. But love, real love, respects boundaries. It doesn't require you to lose yourself just to feel worthy. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll realize this. Every time you overgive, overcommit, or overextend yourself for someone who hasn't earned that kind of access, a part of you starts to resent it. You feel drained, you feel invisible, you feel like you're doing everything right and still losing, and that's because you're giving from a place of need, not from a place of overflow. You think you're being strong by doing everything for her, by always being available, by always saying yes. But that's not strength, that's desperation wearing a mask. That's hoping your actions will finally be enough to make someone see you. But the truth is, if someone only values you when you're performing for them, you were never truly valued to begin with. Men, your self-respect has to come before your relationship, not after it. Too many of you are bending your standards, compromising your vision, adjusting your behavior, just to avoid conflict or keep someone from leaving. But when you do that, when you abandon yourself for the sake of someone else's comfort, you're not winning her over. You're slowly erasing who you are. You become a man who's easy to manipulate, easy to confuse, easy to walk away from. Why? Because no one respects someone who doesn't respect himself. Women may not say it out loud, but deep down they feel it. They feel when a man has lost his edge, when he's more focused on keeping her than keeping his identity. That's when attraction fades. That's when interest disappears. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you stopped being yourself. You need to stop asking, what do women want? And start asking, what does my purpose require? Because when you're in alignment with your vision, when your days are filled with action, discipline, and self-work, you don't have time to overthink someone's silence. You don't panic when someone pulls away. You don't lose sleep over what you can't control. Why? Because you're rooted. You're no longer moving through life trying to prove your worth. You're embodying it, and that energy, that self-assurance, that's what actually makes you attractive. Not your looks, not your wallet, not your charm, but your certainty. Women can feel that. The world can feel that. And more importantly, you feel it. That's the man who walks into a room and doesn't need to say much. The man who doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't force, because he knows if something requires him to abandon himself, it's not worth keeping. Let's be clear. Self-respect isn't arrogance. It's not about being cold. It's about knowing where you end and where someone else begins. It's about knowing what you will and won't tolerate, not just from women, but from life. You don't let people talk to you any kind of way. You don't let just anyone into your space. You don't waste time trying to convince someone to see your value, and it's not because you don't care. It's because you care too much about yourself to settle. Look, there's nothing more attractive than a man who respects his time, his energy, and his mind, a man who is willing to walk away from anything that doesn't align with his values, even if he wants it. That's power, that's control, that's emotional maturity, and the ironic part, that's usually the man who ends up attracting the very things everyone else is chasing, because he's not chasing. He's building, he's working, he's focused, he's elevating his life without needing applause. He knows his peace is more valuable than anyone's presence. So if you want to be loved, start by loving your own path. If you want to be respected, respect your own standards. If you want loyalty, be loyal to your values first, because everything you're looking for out there starts in here, and the moment you finally stop living for approval, you'll realize you were never supposed to be liked by everyone. You were supposed to be respected by the right ones. Absolutely. Here's the 800-word expansion of key point 4 delivered in the same powerful, seamless tone that carried through the speech, direct, motivational, and purpose-driven. There's something powerful that happens when a man stops talking and just starts doing. When he doesn't announce his plans, when he doesn't beg for recognition, when he doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, he simply gets to work. And slowly, quietly, he becomes someone no one saw coming. That's what I want for you, because most men are too loud with their intentions and too quiet with their actions. They want to be seen, they want to be acknowledged, and it's understandable who doesn't want to be recognized for their efforts. But here's what you need to know. The real ones, the men who are building something solid, they're moving in silence. They're not out here posting every grind, every struggle, every idea. They're letting results speak. You don't need a crowd to validate your growth. You need discipline to keep showing up, especially when no one claps for you. That's where the transformation happens. In the unseen, uncelebrated moments where quitting would be easier, but you keep going anyway. And I'll tell you something most people won't. You're not supposed to be understood right now. You're not supposed to be liked by everyone, because the process of becoming the man you were meant to be often looks like isolation, confusion, and silence. People will doubt you, some will laugh, others will say you've changed, and they'll be right. Because the version of you that tolerated less, accepted less, and gave away his energy to people who didn't deserve it, he's gone. You're stepping into something deeper now. See, when you stop looking outward for motivation, when you stop waiting for someone to give you permission to level up, you finally tap into a different kind of power. A power that doesn't need to be broadcasted, a power that doesn't need applause. You don't need to explain why you're disappearing for a while. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why your circle is getting smaller. That's what growth looks like. People say they want success, but most aren't ready for the discipline it demands. They want respect, but they're not ready to be misunderstood. They want peace, but they're not willing to outgrow chaos. But you're different, or you wouldn't still be listening. There's something in you that knows you're meant for more, and not just money or status or validation. You're meant for internal freedom, for peace, for purpose, for quiet strength. But that kind of life isn't built with shortcuts. It's built with silence, structure, and sacrifice, and you don't have to talk about it. You just have to live it. Let her wonder why you stopped texting first. Let them question why you don't go out every weekend. Let them note you've been quiet, more focused, harder to reach. You're not hiding, you're building. You're not lost, you're locked in. And when the time is right, your results will speak for you in a way your words never could. This is why some people don't want you to find this truth, because once you do, they can no longer control you. The moment you start pouring energy into your mission instead of proving yourself to others, you stop playing by their rules. You stop reacting to disrespect. You stop chasing validation. You stop being accessible to people who never appreciated your presence. And here's the truth: not everyone will come with you on this path. Some relationships will fade. Some people will distance themselves, not because you did something wrong, but because your growth reminds them of everything they're not willing to face in themselves. Let them go. It's not your job to shrink so others feel comfortable. It's your job to rise. You don't have to yell to be powerful. You don't have to fight to prove your point. You don't need to convince anyone of your value. Walk with it. Own it. When a man is truly grounded in who he is and where he's going, there's nothing louder than his silence. So stay focused, stay low, stack your wins in the dark. Build your life like it's your legacy, not your performance. Let your absence speak where your presence used to be wasted, and when it's time to show the world what you've built, you won't have to say a word. They'll know. Absolutely. Here's a powerful and seamless ending to the speech that ties together all key points with a lasting impact. So to every man listening, this is your reminder. You don't need permission to reclaim your power. You don't need applause to walk in your purpose. And you definitely don't need to be understood to be respected. Stop shrinking, stop waiting, stop apologizing for the fire inside you. Protect it, build with it, let it shape you, because the world may not reward quiet strength at first, but eventually it bows to those who never gave up on becoming who they were always meant to be. Now go build. Let your life speak louder than your words ever could.